All right, and we're live. Welcome to this session about app configuration that we're doing today for the Azure User Group. I have Sven with us today from Norway. Welcome, Sven.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you with us.
Yes, I'm very glad to speak about Azure App Configuration and maybe also how we use it in VIPs in Norway.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say a few things quickly before we hand it over to Sven and his presentation. So we have, let me see if I can start that here. So just quickly, that we're doing this presentation for the Azure User Group here in Denmark. Towards the end, we'll post a survey. Let me see. There we go. That's the survey link. I'm actually not sure if this QR code works, but I'll post the survey link in the comments as well. So when the presentation is done, we'd really appreciate if you could fill it out and let us know what you think about the meetup and the format and also the time, because that's something that we're trying a bit differently today. So if you could let us know through the survey, that would be fantastic. Then we have, which is not showing. I'll do it like this instead. Unpractical way. Our next meetup after this one is scheduled for November 10th, and it's about IoT and green energy, and it's up on our meetup page, and I'll post a link to that meetup as well after the presentation, just in the comments. But something that will be very interesting to hear more about, the Danish energy company called Ørsted, who is doing something with IoT and windmills and green energy. So that'll be interesting to hear more about. But that was just quickly some practical information, since we don't need to tell anyone where the toilets are, since it's all remote. So we'll just hand it over to Sven to get started. So I'll just bring up the slides, and you can just take it away. So if you want to get started, Sven, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you. Early this year, Microsoft announced that Azure App Configuration is in GA. And I thought, what is that service doing? I asked myself. I've never heard of it. And after about spending 2 seconds thinking, I knew that this app configuration service might give us some great value in VIPs. VIPs, where I work, is a very popular Norwegian payment and ID service. It started about 5 years ago with a bunch of Java Spring Boot applications. You know, in Java, we tend to keep our configurations in property files as close to the applications as possible, which means in the same repository. So the property files are part of an application, and we would need to run an application through a CI/CD pipeline whenever we change a configuration. Or we do some work like storing the configuration file outside an application and make them available to the application in a very secure way. What we did back then was using a Java configuration server that would read configuration files from a repository. All applications would at startup ask the configuration server to give it the configurations. That works until it doesn't. The problem is the dependency to a build agent. Assume that you want to rebuild and deploy the config server. That would happen on a build agent. When the build agent isn't working, the configuration server can start. We all agree on that. And no application that reads from this server can neither. It's really bad that an application can start because of a dependency to a service that has a dependency to Microsoft managed build agents, which has issues today and yesterday, and actually the last couple of days. And that really happened often last year. The solution came with Azure App Configuration. And I want to tell you as much as I can about this service. As Morten mentioned, my name is Sven Malvik. I'm the head of cloud platform at Vipps, which is located in Oslo. So, let's go over to the agenda now. I will start with we will start with deploying Azure App Configuration at first from the portal. Then we will test it, trying just the REST interface of app configuration, very easy with Postman, just to see that everything works. We will dive into the portal and look at the panel, how it looks like, and going through the menu items and make sure that we are all on the same page. Then we will talk about Key Vault secrets, how we can access them with the use of app configuration, because probably we don't need both, or maybe we do. Let's find out that. Then we will integrate app configuration in a web application. I used Spring Boot for that, but I also could use a .NET application. It's basically the same thing. We'll look at import and export of the configurations, because there's a lot we can do with it. We'll dive into GitHub Actions. Then we also take a look at Azure DevOps variables, because apparently, which is a CI/CD tool, this has also key values, which is basically the same as app configuration. So maybe you can replace that. And at the end, I want to talk about an event-driven configuration management setup that we do not use yet in our setup, but we tried it out and it works, and I would like to show you how we can change infrastructure based on changes in app configuration in a very fluent or DevOps-like way. So the motivation of configuration, apparently, of this Azure App Configuration is to separate code from the configuration. And that we can do, of course. We have the code in the repository of the application, and we have the configuration another place. Also, Azure App Configuration is great if you want multiple services access the same configuration or tools. And this might happen for infrastructure or for services that are used across many services. The benefits of Azure App Configuration or having the configurations there is you can easily tag them and label them. And so say, I just want to have the configuration for production. Maybe I want to compare production with a test environment very easily. So we can do this. But we can also see at the history of the configurations and how they changed over time, and maybe also restore. We can restore, but there are also some limits for this service. Feature flags is a nice feature. We'll dive into, first of all, how we use feature flags in an application, but also why we need feature flags, and that feature flags are nothing else than configurations saying true or false. And at the end, we'll also talk a bit about the SDKs and or that there are many libraries that you can use to access your app configuration service via REST or SDK, or also PowerShell. But PowerShell is super limited for now. But anyway, I have tried it with this event-driven configuration management, and it will highlight the limits of using PowerShell. Okay, first of all, let's deploy an app configuration directly from the portal. I've also written a blog post about that one, so that you can look at if you want to do it yourself from either the portal or from the Cloud Shell. Okay, let's go in here. First of all, I have created myself a resource group, but we don't need that for now. Let's just reload it here because it's probably gone some while. Okay, I can just choose whatever resource group I have here. I can also, go in here. I was wrong place. Configuration, there it is. I can just create it. And it doesn't ask for so much, just the resource group. Then you have to give it a name and a pricing tier. The pricing tier, there are two different kinds. You have the free one and you have the standard one. The free one, there you have a history of your configuration for 7 days, and for the standard one for 30 days. It comes with an SLA of 99.9%, and while using the free one, you would basically have nothing. But in this example, of course, or demo, I will use the pricing tier, the free one. Creating this takes about 2 or 3 minutes. Since I already have provisioned it, I will just take this one. Here I have my app configuration instance. I called it APM config appc APM because I have this event-driven configuration management setup with an APIM example. But first, let's look a bit at Azure App Configuration. So first of all, I get an endpoint here that is public available and that I can use. I also get access keys. I get read-write keys and read-only keys, primary and secondary. We have an ID, secret, and connection string. We will use both of all 3 of them in the code at the end. And then we can scale up and down from free to the standard ones. And then here's the really interesting part. We have the Configuration Explorer, which shows us all configurations. So I mentioned you can, it's a key value pair that you can label and that you can tag. But what the value is really up to you. You can put in clear text, basically, or you can put in JSON or whatever you want, basically. But let's just do not a keyword reference right now. We leave that to later. But for now, just create a random key. I call it Copenhagen key. And it has the value CPH value here. Then we could label it with, for example, prod or test or whatever you want. You can be creative there, and we can give it a content type that you can use later for identifying or formatting or whatever you want to do basically with it. For now, I just leave it blank here. So now we have it there. I can show values here and have my Copenhagen string here. I have no label, so this is fine. Sorry for that. Then we have the feature manager. We'll go into that later, where you can set feature flags. They are based then on the Configuration Explorer. We can restore values, key values. We can also compare labels. I have, for example, here label test, and I can say label production. Select resources. Let's see this one. And then I can, sorry, I have this production here. I have nothing in there right now, but then I would basically see my differences. I can take a look at this a bit later. I have import export right here. We'll take a look at that later, but there are some things that we can do with this as well. Okay. App configuration versus Key Vault versus app service settings. There are some, or this question I got a few times. When do you put key values into the Key Vault, and what's the difference between app service settings and app configuration? Why should I move them to app configuration, or when should I use what? I mean, Key Vault is really for storing secrets, and you cannot store secrets in app configuration. You just can store plain text there. But what you can do is you can reference Key Vault secrets from within Azure App Configuration. So that would mean if you have an application that needs a secret from Key Vault, it would ask Azure App Configuration to give it the reference. And when you then have the reference, you can ask Key Vault to retrieve the secret. But the clients that are out there, or the SDKs that are out there for .NET, for example, or Node.js, or for Java, that will do it for you. So you just say at the end to app configuration, give me these secrets, and the client then that you can download will take care of the rest. So that means you just work with one technology, and the other stuff is up to some client libraries. So which makes it a bit easier to work with. When it comes to app service settings, those settings in app service are also just key value pairs, but they are only available for app service, not for other tools. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that this key value pairs from app configuration you can use for many services or many tools, and this is not possible with app service settings, and of course. At the same time, you can use app configuration as mentioned, which has feature flags. So you can easily turn it on or off and see the result immediately in your application. Of course, if you have implemented it this way as well, of course. Yeah, let's just get started with the rest. And as mentioned, I have this blog post here where I basically went through what I will show you now. But there's a lot of code, not much code, but there's code that you might need. So that's why this blog post can be of interest. Okay, let's just we have added to our configuration explorer value. We called it Copenhagen key. And if we now switch to Postman, which I will move up here, sorry for that. There. I have my endpoint here that I showed in the overview. I have the key value context passed, and then I have the key. If I would just use it how it is, Copenhagen key, without doing extra, theoretically it would fail. But it works right here because I set a pre-request script which will set headers, authorization headers. For the authorization headers, I need the access keys. I need the ID and I need the value. And I, of course, chose the read-only keys in this case. So if you go back here, I have my access keys, the read-only ones, and I then choose the ID here and the secret. That's the ID and the secret here. And then I have a code that signs those values for me and put it in headers. That's what this does here. And then I basically just set the header, the date, the content, and the authorization, which is the important thing. So I set 3 headers basically. And when I've done that, I just can send it, and then I get my value back here. So this is a bit working with REST. You have to sign, do all that stuff, of course, and then it would work. Okay, let's go back. So we have used REST, or we just read from the REST, and let's look at the feature manager. First, let's look at the service itself. So I already have added a feature flag here, which I called better, but let's just add one more. And let's call it on off, being super creative. And we could use feature filtering as well. I won't do this now, but what you can do is that you can specify that I want to get on or off based on the percentage, for example. I said 50%, so at 50% the cases I get on or off back. And then you could do some canary testing, for example, just letting through 10% and 90% not, something like that. Or you could do this on time based, that every 5 minutes, for example, you would have on the other cases off. But for now, let's not do this, just have a Boolean on or off. And what you can do here in the portal is just, or you do just enable it or you disable it. When you go back to the configuration explorer, then you would see it will add a configuration basically, which is this one. If you show the values, we see that there is some more information. There's the description and the conditions. We didn't define any conditions, so this is blank here. So before we'll try it, I want to talk about why this can be beneficial. Feature flags in general. I have a real example from a previous project where I was. We were about 120 people, and it was 50 or 60 people that worked on a monolith. And we had a lot of teams, and we used Git flow. So that means you have many feature branches, you have a developer branch, you have release branches, you have the master branch, and you have hotfix branch. So, and you need at the end to merge all your branches to the developer branch that you then merge to the master branch, and it's really not fun, and you get conflicts all the time. So what we did then, we changed it, the setup, and we used then tried out trunk-based development, which basically means that you just have one master branch, and the team still can have their release branches, but or feature branches, but they have to be very, very limited in time, very short-living feature branches that you then merge into master as quickly as possible. And you don't have so many branches anymore. So everybody basically works on the master branch. But that would mean that you have a new feature, for example, that is not finished yet, and it takes a while. So you need to hide your code from production, and you can do this with conditions. And that's those feature flags then that you say. If in beta, for example, that's the name of the feature flag, you say, I don't want to see this code. And then it will not execute this code, of course. So that's why you could imagine feature flags would be beneficial. So I have created, let's just go into the service here. Let me just bring it up. I didn't do this apparently before. I just will add it to my workspace here. I called it something with spaceship. There it is. And then I will bring it up here. Okay, there it is. Spaceship. I have this also on GitHub, the entire code. I will, no. It is, where it is, it's probably there. This code is based on, this is a demo, a super simple demonstration of feature flags and configuration management from a web application. It's super identical to .NET as well. This is based on a demonstration or tutorial from Microsoft, but this tutorial had lots of errors and it didn't really work. I created also pull requests then, of course, and they got merged. But at the same time, then I simplified this tutorial a bit, and this is then the result of it. So when I go back to the code here, let me just find it there. First of all, I have to set the connection string that I got from the access key pane from the portal. I will quickly show you to them, to those. They are in this case in the Bootstrap property. I have to set this here so the client library can identify this, and then I have to set the app configuration connection string as an variable, basically, also as an environment variable. I will do this now. Just getting into the terminal here. Let me just go back. It looks a lot nicer. And I have at the same time a README where I just can copy this out like this, and set it here. And then I need, of course, the connection string. Let me go to the access keys here. I choose read-only keys, and then I choose the connection string like this, going back, and then I set it like this. So, and then I can basically just run it. But we will just start it, look at the application, and when everything runs, then we will. I will show you the code. Or basically, there's not much code, but I want to really show you that it's super simple, and the same is true for a .NET application. When it comes to the libraries, there are two libraries that are interesting: the Spring Cloud Azure Feature library and the configuration library, basically. And for the configuration library, there are two as well, one for the web and one without web. Web means basically that this library will try again or read from Azure App Configuration every half minute. Every half minute is the default. You can specify this as well, like I did here with the cache expiration of 1 second. So it will basically reload every time. It's probably not that nice for performance, but for this demo, it's totally okay. So this is almost up and running. I think we just go back to back here. And this is my local host, which I can try at the end. What it does now, it's building, and then it's running. I could have built it before, of course, I actually did, but I made some minor changes right before this year. So whenever you have questions, maybe let's take it at the end, but you can of course also write right now here in the channel. Let's just reload it anyway. No, not ready yet. It takes some time. Okay. Maybe we take a look at the code before. That's maybe easier. So I have my spaceship main application. As usual, I do nothing there. Everything is as before. I have an object here, a model. The model is where the information then comes from or is stored from Azure App Configuration. In this case, I called it message. And if we take a look at the instance here or at the message key that are stored here in Azure App Configuration, we see that we have something called message here, config.message or application/config message. Application is predefined as the key or set as a prefix from the client library. So we have to have this so that my Spring Boot SDK for .NET the same can identify its configurations. Then I have config. That's something that I set myself. I did this here. I want to have a special prefix. So maybe I have more models that I somehow would like to have organized in a good way. And then I have the actual key, which in this case is message. So it will be stored there. And then I have my controller. The controller is really saying then that there's a request coming in, like ordinary slash, like here. And then it responds with something, with the view basically. But I set some attributes also for the HTML view. In this case, beta, which is then which retrieves then this information from the model, saying is it on or off, and the message itself. And when we go into the templates here, for example, welcome, we can see that we have a navigation item. If better, then show the menu item or not. And we have here specified the message itself. So it will then pop up immediately. And since we defined a library for the web, it will reload every second from Azure App Configuration and get its values basically. So this should be very soon ready. Let's go here. Let's just try it. Does not work yet. That's of course bad that it's really slowly right now. I'm not sure why. Okay. Then let's wait for this a bit more, because I really want to show you, or let's do this first. Let's go into the, let's change the message right now. We have the message here, and it's telling the future will never come, but this is probably not true. We can change it by the future is today, 30th of October. Apply this, and then it's stored here. Let's see, it's successful build right now. So it should come up in under 20 seconds probably. Also, let's check the feature flag here for beta. Beta is off now. We shouldn't see it. And if we just enable it like this, we should be good. So now it has come a bit more. This shouldn't be so slow, of course. I want to really try again. Sometimes it's no, not yet. But at least there was no error whatsoever. It just needs some time for itself. Yeah, I have, you maybe have noticed that I have a secret file here. We'll dive into that a bit later. I have also a production property file here. That's just one property file. We will use this at the end as well, because now I have just changed in the instance of application configuration itself. So the configuration is not part of the application. And as mentioned before, it's a good thing to separate configuration and application code. But at the same time, it's very important that at least we know what configuration we are dealing with. And maybe we would need this somehow for locally, that we don't need access to online access to my instance all the time. So that's why we have to have this file here as well, and then sync or synchronize this file with Azure App Configuration in a super simple and automated way. And we'll talk about this very soon. When it is,
Sven,
yes?
Just quickly, if we could get you to zoom a bit more on when you show the code, which I guess it's a bit hard to see on the stream. So if you can, if you can increase it a bit, that'd be great. Perfect. I think that's good.
Okay. Thank
you
very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is it's supposed to just start. It's usually it takes 2 seconds. Now he's really busy with something. I'm not sure what it is. Okay, but maybe we can dive into this very soon and just get to the next topic here. Let's just look at this one. Okay, Azure App Configuration tasks versus variables in Azure DevOps. That's interesting, because if you, as I told you before, we have app configurations where you have key values, but at the same time you have Azure DevOps. So wouldn't it be nice if you use all your configuration or having stored them in Azure App Configuration and having everything there, and not just application code, but also infrastructure code or CI/CD configurations? Because when you have done this, you could have stored all this configuration in a repository, in a file, sync this with app configuration that we will do very soon, and then get it in Azure DevOps instead of having like we did before or now. We have property or configuration files in the application. We have configuration in Azure DevOps. Then we probably also have configuration in a key vault. Now we have everything in app configuration, and applications and everything you have pulled just from app configurations. Let's take a look at that. Okay, let's go into into here and go into in a release pipeline. So you can use Azure DevOps is a CI/CD tool from Microsoft. You have a part where you can build your code, and you have a part where you can deploy your code, the CI and the CD part. This is the CD part where we deploy and where you can use app configuration as well. So let's just go into the edit mode here and take a look. So I have one stage, and I have an Azure App Configuration task. There are two tasks. One is the Azure App Configuration, and one is Azure App Configuration Push, which means you have provide files, property files or YAML, and you can, or JSON, and you can take this file and push it to App Configuration. App Configuration imports it then. So this would be here more an export. What I did, I set up a subscription connection, a service connection, so connection to my app service instance. Then I specified the instance itself. In my case, I have just one, so apm config apc. And then I can provide a key filter. In this case, I want to have all of them. And I can have a label as well, but since I am not using labels, give me everything. And what it does now, it will read all the key values from Azure App Configuration and set them as environment variables on the build agent machine. And in this case, I just print all my environment variables. So before I used variables here, where I also have my a key and a value, and I could provide them here as well. But it's much nicer to have them in Azure App Configuration. So I could create a release here, click create, and then it would basically run. I've done this, of course, before, so we don't need to wait for it. But what we see here is that I got a warning. So, and this warning is very interesting. So it succeeded partially. So first of all, let's look at what went very well. Or here I see that my secret, the access was denied. So again, app configuration, you just provide references to secrets. It doesn't read the secrets from the key vault. It's still the client. So in this case, this task that reads the secret at the end from the key vault. But since I do not have access now to the key vault, I will get an error. But if we go one task down here to where we print all of our environments, our environment variables, we can see our values basically. For example, app configuration key that I know I have, but I have also some others here that I, of course, don't see. There are a lot of lots of them right here. But if we go into this here and go to configuration, I can see I have my appc key here with the value my value. And if we go back to the release, where is it? Not here. There it is. I see that's my value. So that worked fine. Let's try this out. Now it seems to work now. Now you see that you have the future is today, the 23rd of 10, and that worked. And I also have this beta here, the feature flag. If I just remove it, let's do it. Just remove it here. it would take about 1 second. Now it's gone. So, and this is the implementation of it was very easy. I went one step further previously. As I said in the introduction, we provide a configuration server that gets all configurations from all the applications from property files that are stored in Azure in a GitHub repository. So the applications would just ask the config server then. So what I did very easily, or not easily, but what I did was to replace this config server with another config server that reads all configurations from the app configuration service. I provided the same endpoints that you have in the traditionally app configuration, in the traditionally config server that we had, and just read basically from a different source. And that would work perfectly fine, of course, as well. Okay. Let's go back. So we talked about the tasks and Azure DevOps, and let's now look at referencing keywords. So I just need something here. Okay, we go to the service back here and go to the Configuration Explorer. And then we create a keyword reference. We can do it here. Let's make it a bit larger as well. I can say ICPH secret. And then I can say I have a keyword. This keyword is in this resource group, and there it is. And then it will load all the secrets that exists in this keyword. And I have one, it's called my secret. And I want to have the latest version of it. I can apply, and then I have my CPA secret. And what it does really is just storing the reference, nothing more. But now I would, if I go back to here and just open another terminal, I would like to retrieve it or to resolve it. Basically, I can do it very simply. I can log into my Azure account. Is it login? So that we would do normally as well. Let me just do something like this here. Not sure if this was the problem. I haven't had the problem before. Everything is very slowly here. What I basically can do is I can resolve my my secrets if I want to, but I also but I really would like to show this here. But okay. Sorry for having a very slow machine today. Just killing something here. So there are just there's no process running really here. That shouldn't be a problem. Let's go back here and try. Hasn't come any further. Okay, let's go back here and just try if we can do this one here as well. Let's try to make this. Let's do this first, because this is the most interesting part anyway. Event-driven configuration management. What we did at VIPS, we have two AKS clusters, Azure Kubernetes clusters. We have an active one and we have an inactive one. The active one is that serves basically every request. We have two clusters because we cannot upgrade AKS in a secure way. You can just theoretically go into the portal of AKS and then say, I want to upgrade. And then it will take each and every node and upgrade one by one. The problem is just that previously what we saw is that one node would fail and another node would also fail, and suddenly we had some capacity problems. That was really a problem for us. So we needed to change something. Because of this, we had to request or open a support case, or support ticket for Microsoft, and they would fix something. But at the same time, we had downtime several times because of that, and we don't want to have this. So there's another option we can do. We can, oops, now it's coming. Great. We can say that we would like to introduce a new node pool and then just upgrade this one node pool and make changes there. The problem then is that you have to upgrade the control plane first. And this control plane may also fail. And when you don't have the control plane, you basically cannot do anything at all. So then you are stuck and you have to create a support ticket and they have to fix it. And first then you can deploy. And in case you have an incident, you can't do anything. So what we ended up with after talking and having workshops with Microsoft was to have try out immutable infrastructure. So that means we have an active cluster and an inactive cluster, basically. And whenever we have to change something, we would switch over to a new AKS cluster. We called it blue and green, basically because we would like to route 10% this way and 90% this way. We're not there yet, but we are getting there. And we will do these changes in API management, which is our front door for all of our services. So we would say that now green is active and tomorrow blue is active. And you do this in API management in policies. Not sure if you're familiar with API management, but policies can change the behavior of APIs. You have policies for each and every endpoint or each of and every API, or you can set it globally. So we can set this globally, of course. And those policies then, where we say route all traffic to green, they are based on a configuration saying blue or green, which is basically a key value pair and nothing more. API management, you can do this as well. It's called named values, not properties. They call it named values. And then you can set a green and a color, basically. So, but we would like to have this fully automated. We have infrastructure as code. That means we have all the code in a repository, all the configuration. I would just like to make a change there. And then I have my GitHub that takes care to synchronize with app configuration. And I would like to show this to you at first. And at the end, we can go to the keyword references again. Okay, let's, sorry for that. Let's go to where is it? It's gone. Okay, let's do it again and move this basically up here. Okay, I have my my GitHub actions that we will use for this. This is an Azure App Configuration sync. This would mean that I will use Azure GitHub Actions that will synchronize all my configurations that I have as property files in my application with Azure App Configuration. And when we go back to the application itself, here I have my spaceship, and it's having where it is, this GitHub here. I make this a bit larger, removing it completely. I say read from the properties file and use this GitHub action called app configuration sync. And here's the connection string. And I want that you set a prefix. This is called application config. And as mentioned previously, this prefix is super important so that my Java application can find it, basically. So that means that whenever I commit this code, and I can do this, let's just find the production property file here, and I've set it to green. Let's just set it to blue. Or we know we have written the future is 23rd of October. Let's just change this here and commit it. I write just gx. It means git add, git commit, and git push. Very easy. So that means that I get all my changes now into GitHub, and then this action will run and update app configuration. So if we go into here, and then I can get my bookmarks, my, sorry for that, let's just make it this way here. And I have my, my code. Where is my code? There. And I have my GitHub actions. And I see this run 29 seconds ago. That means if I would go into my my instance of Azure App Configuration, then I would see the change. Let's go in here. Okay. I have this instance, and there is app configuration. Go into configuration manager or explorer, and then I would see that show values, and then the future will never come. So it switched it back, basically. So this part works. If you go back to this here, then we have now used Azure GitHub Actions, and we synchronize with Azure App Configuration. So now I used the repository or the application itself, but in the real time or in the real life, where I work, we have infrastructure as code, and we would have a separate repository, of course, for that. What we will do now, we have Azure App Configuration, and I want this information, this blue-green, in API management. So first, let's take a look at API management. And API management is really our front door with all the APIs that we have in our organization, the front door towards AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. So here it is, API management. And it has APIs and name values. We'll not talk about API management here. I just want to tell you or show you that we have named values. And this is this. I call it a test, and it has the value blue now because we changed it from green to blue. But anyway, let's do it again. I want to change this value. So how do I get this value from Azure App Configuration into Azure API Management? As you have seen, I use, for this, I use Event Grid. So we can, when we are in Azure API Management, in App Configuration, we can set up events, which is really nice. I have here my events, and then I connect it to a runbook. And this runbook is a PowerShell script. Let's go into, sorry for that, let's go into the resource group here directly and get up the runbook. So this runbook here has all the jobs that has run. It has the web hook that I specified. It is enabled. And now I want to show you, sorry about that, run book, the automation account, where I have my run books, or this one run book, and this is PowerShell. The good thing about PowerShell is that I have a lot of commands that I can use. I can just say, and give me the value from API management, or set the value, the name value, and then I'm done. This doesn't work for Azure App Configuration Service yet. When I get an event from Azure App Configuration into this workbook or into this runbook, I just see that there is a change in a key, but I don't know the value. So I need to read the value from Azure App Configuration. And since there is no PowerShell command yet that's called get config, I have to use the REST interface basically, and that's what I did here. I did the same as I did with the REST example in the beginning. I set my ID, I set the secret and some more information, and then I sign those, set them as headers, and then I'm basically done. I set up a connection, and then I would read the value from Azure App Configuration, and then I would set here at the end named value. So very simple in theory, but since we need to read the configuration value first because we don't get them. I don't know why, but we don't get them, and then we need to sign it, and then it basically works. So this way, really can automate everything in the infrastructure, which is very nice. Yes, that was basically it. I very shortly maybe want to show you the export and import, which is also very interesting because you can do lots of things there. We can export and import YAML files, JSON, and we can also import, export to and from another app configuration instance or app services, or we can use plain files. So what can you do with it? You can, for example, use Helm charts for that. You could, when you have a Helm chart, it asks you for configurations. If you, for example, use a config map, then you need configurations, and those configurations are in files. So what you could do, and also the examples of Microsoft say that you export all your configurations as a file, and then would eject them immediately. That's one use case you can use, for example, which we also using here in DIBS. Yes, that was basically it. Sorry for my slow PC. I'm not sure what it was.
No worries. So if you're done with the presentation, we do have one question that we can bring up. We'll just switch like this. Okay, so we have Nick asking, in a microservice architecture with something like 50 services, you might have some shared, or you might have some config shared between services. Are there any way to ease maintenance while only giving access to config needed, or not at all?
You have many services and lots of configurations then, of course. And how can you make sure that, for example, Morten, you maintain service A, and you should only have access to the configurations for your applications, right? So basically, you would like to have access control based on a prefix in app configuration, and that doesn't work, of course. So in praxis, you would separate. You would have multiple Azure App Configuration instances then. You can't do those fine-grained access control mechanisms. You don't have them in Azure App Configuration, at least not yet. So that's so things needs really to belong to each other somehow, also access-wise.
Yeah, I guess we had one follow-up comment. Would you have one app configuration per service, or can you have one global app configuration where you somehow tell which service have access to which config?
Yeah, that really depends on what you would like. Would you like that many teams maintain this Azure App Configuration or this one instance, or not? So we have, for example, one Azure App Configuration for legacy services, basically, that have all those configurations in the Java applications, but it's one team that maintains those. And we, as the cloud platform team, we deal with infrastructure. We have a totally separate app configuration instance. Costs, of course, more money, but we can do whatever we want then, and doing all our access rights and so on. So at the end, you will end up with many instances. It's also about ownership and stuff like that. And
yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, like, the ownership is probably a big part of it, right? That the service, the services that your team runs is probably you probably want to have app configuration for that and have that within your control. And so if there is shared configuration, probably depends very much on what that configuration actually is. If it's is it just out of convenience? Does it really hurt your team that it's duplicated, or does it hurt other teams? Maybe there's coordination that you can do elsewhere in the company, so you don't end up with shared configuration. So yeah, I guess ownership is a big part of it.
Yeah, and you will end up, or that what I experience is when you start, if you have your in the start your legacy applications with all those configurations in the property file, and you want to import them, then you are, when you do it the first time, you're probably wrong with the prefixes, and then you need to delete them. Deleting them, it works, but it's not that user friendly yet. So I know for sure that at the end you will have not mess, but it's a bit chaotic maybe. And if many are maintaining this one instance, you really have problems, as I see it. So I really think it's super important for now, because it's a relatively new service, to have separate instances for teams, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we had a similar challenge with Key Vault, and just figuring out how to do that because I mean, out of convenience, it's easy to just have one Key Vault, right? Because if you have, say, if you have multiple services posting into Slack, for example. Then having a shared token or something, that's an easy thing to do, right? And a convenient thing to do, but it might not be ideal, because if something needs to change for whatever reason, then then it can be problematic.
What's so great with what many do are storing their configurations in Key Vault, because it's easy, because there are secrets already, so why not putting all the configurations there, or at least some of them? But now with app configuration, you can put them there. You have some easier, simpler mechanism to get and process your configurations, because you have tags and labels. But at the same time, you can reference keys or secrets at the same time, which is very, very nice. So yes.
Yeah. So we don't really have more questions, it seems. No.
Okay.
So I don't know if people still have questions, then by all means, post it in the comments.
So again, sorry for I don't know, my PC was suddenly giving up. It's probably because I recorded this one, but I haven't had the issues before, so it was very. But I stopped it. So.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll just add one last thing. Since we often collaborate with Microsoft and they help us with this stream, we have this badge to give out. So for everyone who followed along in the stream, you can get this learning badge. And if you don't know what it's all about, you can read more about it here on aka.ms/azure.heroes, where you can learn more about these badges, which is collectibles. It's almost like Pokemon Go. Just you don't have to go outside. You can just collect them by staying indoors, and then you put them in a Bitcoin. What's it called? Engine. Yeah, I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yeah. So, and there's a community of badges, so people collecting them worldwide, and I think you can also, like, if you've collected a certain bunch of badges, that you can exchange some of it for swag. At least that's what I've heard. So that might be a fun thing. I haven't tried it myself yet, but I'll post this link in the comment. So for people who want to check it out and get their learning badge, then please use this. And then we had, so Nick actually wrote a follow-up. So one more. Thank you, Nick, for posting your comments. But then I guess there's a slight delay from what we say till it pops up on YouTube. So one more from Nick. When you use app configuration with Key Vault, is it as secure to fetch this way compared to directly connecting with your service, connecting your service to Key Vault?
So yeah, that's so first of all those communication at rest are encrypted, but what you get from Azure App Configuration is no secret. You don't get a secret. You just get the reference, and having the reference, you can do whatever you want and secure your connection to Azure Key Vault as you want. But if you use the provided SDKs, for example, for .NET or for Spring Boot, then it's this client that takes care of that. So you are not so much involved there, but of course you have to provide connectivity, but the rest is then up to the client. But you decide if you want to implement it yourself. Just get the reference, nothing more. App configuration is stupid.
Okay, so there's nothing smart like with app service, for example, where you can, with app service, you can kind of make a connection to the secret in Key Vault, and then when you read the configuration, you just get that secret out, right? So it's based on managed identity, as far as I remember.
That's what I tried to visualize with this Azure DevOps. That there is I couldn't get the value, the secret, because because the client, also the task from Azure DevOps, has no access to the keyboard.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So the only thing you would get out of app configuration is the reference, and then it would be up to you to then make the secure or the authorized, authenticated requests to Key Vault to get the actual secret.
Yes,
so like if you're using managed identity.
Yeah, it's always the client that is responsible for that. And there are many clients already available, SDKs, that would do this for you.
Yeah. Okay. What about something like tenancy? Like if you have a multi-tenant setup, is there anything in app configuration that would help with that, or is there any kind of tenancy in app configuration? So you could have configuration for one tenant within an app configuration, or would you need to create basically an account or service for each tenant for that to work?
I haven't read about the multi-tenants in regards to Azure App Configuration, so I would assume that you need to think yourself how you set it up.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. So, but I would expect you anyway. You have probably your services in one tenant or one domain with some people that are responsible for that would have their own Azure App Configuration probably. So, but of course you can have one instance, of course, and as long as you get. I mean, if you're thinking about then multi-tenancies and access to the key vault, then of course you need to make sure that you peer your other tenant. I mean, this is of course as well possible. You can peer another tenant with another subscription, but it's getting then chaotic.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious if there's anything in the service that would make it easy, but I guess depending on what type of configuration, you can also use prefixes or something like that to have conventions for your tenants for whatever configuration you need to look up. But
that's right. You can like the SDK does it. They prefix everything basically, and that's really important to be clear about the prefixes. What I might prefix and how. If there's a lot of different service configurations.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Sven. I think that's as far as we can take it today. So I appreciate you taking the time out to tell us about app configuration. And I posted the link to your blog posts in the comments, and I think we'll post it to the meetup group as well. So if people who come back to the stream or see the recorded video, that we'll post the link to them as well through the meetup. So the people who weren't able to catch the live stream, they can catch the recording and then see your blog post as well and the material that you have there. But yeah, so thank you very much, and I think we'll end the stream for now. Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.